Great. Welcome to another edition of the podcast Privateer. Today we have Tsoanelo and Ntene, Standard Bank's head of sponsor coverage. So Tsoanelo, thank you very much for joining us on the Privateers podcast. Why don't you kick us off by telling us, how did you get into banking?
Cool. Thanks, Oliver. I really appreciate the time that you guys are giving up for listening to me. I mean, it's always quite interesting when people are want to hear your opinion. So thanks very much for the opportunity. So mine's a strange one, how I got into banking. Actually, I always tell people I'm a bit of a dangerous banker. So started my career in construction, actually. So kind of studied a degree in the built environment, then started out at WHO Construction. So started there for the first 5 years of my career. Then during one of our projects that we were working on, a whole bunch of engineers sitting in a room feeling very terrified of a bank, and I thought, surely that can't be the case, right? So let me try and see what this is all about and try and demystify this. And that then started my journey, kind of trying to get into banking. I was very fortunate that a friend of mine was transitioning and moving overseas, and that opened up a spot at one of the local investment banks to move into their real estate finance business. Did that for 6.5 years, really loved it. Learned about finance, learned about complex structuring, learned about credit, which is a big part of banking. But really, really got into the mix of the financial markets, which are quite critical and core to kind of driving any economy. And then about 3.5 years ago now, I moved across to Standard Bank, where it's been a whirlwind, to say the least. But really excited about this new venture in my life. But at the core of what I love, right? Spending time with people, understanding different situations, understanding what's happening across different sectors, understanding scale, understanding and where we can kind of add value to that. So that's kind of a very protracted story about how I got into banking. Been in banking now for 10 years, so yes. I'm now a banker. Didn't think I'd ever say that, but so I'm now a banker, yeah.
And could you explain to us what your role would be as head of sponsor coverage? What does it actually mean?
Sure. Yeah, good question, Oliver. I think a lot of people always wonder when you at Standard Bank when you talk about coverage. What is coverage? It's very well understood what someone does when they're lending you money or providing you advice or giving you transactional banking, providing you FX solutions. But I speak to what Standard Bank, how we think about things. We're a coverage-led franchise or bank. So what does that mean? It means, in my role and my colleagues that sit across different sectors, we are the custodian of the client relationship. So we're basically that one point of call for a client when they want to engage with the bank, right? Yes. So we mobilise the bank for the client's benefit. So in my team, we've got the privilege, I'll say, to be both product agnostic and sector agnostic, which really allows us a great overview of what's happening in the different sectors and how we can then kind of support our clients, become a trusted advisor for them, and then really provide them with the right sort of solutioning for the type of transaction that they're trying to do. So, and then what we then bring is kind of that sector insights from the different teams. And because of our footprint in Standard Bank, we've got that geographic footprint as well, which we can kind of tap into. So really, it's at its core, it's relationship management.
Yes.
But adding value and being that trusted advisor and partner to our clients.
Such an important word that you use there, trusted advisor. Just before the cameras went on, we were talking about how small this town really is at its heart, particularly when we're in these banking circles, private equity circles, we bump into the same environments. What does that mean for you, trusted advisor?
Sure. Another good question. I think for us, we want to know our clients' businesses better than they know their business. I think that is nirvana for any sort of client. If you've got a banker alongside you that really you feel that they've got your best interests at heart, not only to tell you the good stuff, but also to kind of keep you from jumping off a ledge when you
the sounding board
going to make what feels like the wrong decision. So we really want to be that first call that a client wants to make to bounce an idea off, as crazy as it sounds, or as so that's what we see ourselves at, that strategic thinking partner. When you're thinking about deploying capital, you want to understand what's happening in different sectors, different markets, and really allowing us to walk the journey with you. So for me, that's kind of what I think about when we talk about a trusted partner, trusted advisor. Yeah.
Yeah, we speak it often during these podcasts about how entrepreneurship can be a lonely place, and you need these pockets of excellence, these expertise around you, and that's the role that you guys would be fulfilling within that space. Something that caught my attention recently, you wrote a very interesting article.
Yes.
And when I read through it, what resonated immediately was you started out right at the beginning, the history of how finance operated in South Africa. And we're doing this podcast from a heritage building that has its roots back in those mining heydays. This was a landlord's property. Do you want to tell us a little bit more about that article? What got you to write it?
Yeah. So one thing that we pride ourselves in from a Standard Bank perspective, especially in the coverage world, is being thought leaders, right? It's quite important for us to not only be seen, but also to walk the talk around putting out knowledge out there that, I think everyone kind of sees it and hears it, but not often do you put it down on paper. And it's always a risk, right? Like, are people going to like it? Are they going to resonate with it? So I'm very thankful that it at least resonated. But what got me writing about it is because, you hear this word private capital so often lately, right? So when I reflect on my career, I've actually always been in the private capital space, but never really called it that. In my construction days, we'd be looking to fund a project, and we were the kind of the technical partner, but we needed to bring in a financial partner, bring in, different sorts of skills, and that was private capital. We were raising private capital for a project basis. I moved into banking. I was dealing with people mainly I did a lot of stuff in the student accommodation and residential space, and the party that you're dealing with, a lot of that wasn't the only thing they did. It was an allocation in their portfolio to real estate, and very much like families or private entities and that was mobilizing private capital, but we never called it that, right? And I'd say now in South Africa over the last, 10, 15 years, maybe even shorter, this euphoria around private capital has become such a big thematic.
Just another buzzword.
But then it's like, let's trace it back. Like, what is the arc of this thing?
That's what I really enjoyed about your article.
Where did it start, right? And you can see, like, through the years and through the ages, it's always been there in different forms and guises. We talk about the gold fields, we talk about the diamond mines. That's been capital mobilizing to drive economies, to drive industries. But I think it's morphed over time, right? We talk about what happened in South Africa in the new dispensation. That's very well documented. That created lots of wealth. There's a big wealth transfer that's happening now as well. But it's also like, how does that capital, what is the different format of that capital now? It's not just money, it's now directing how societies function. It's now directing how people move. So it's got a responsibility to it as well, and saying, do we fully appreciate the responsibility that our capital allocators has been bestowed upon them almost? It's like, you're working alongside big governments now. You're working alongside public interest. So there's a lot of legacy. It comes from a legacy perspective, but also the legacy building part of it. So, using this phrase, private capital, to actually dig in deeper and see, like, what's the future look like. So, I always say, like, it's good to understand the past, good to understand where you are now and where we're going forward, right? So that was what really motivated the writing of the article, and just, I suppose, putting it on the table to have these sorts of conversations, because, it's widely used, and I think I'll have a very different definition to someone else, but it's good when we can get into these spaces and actually debate it.
For me, context is so important in all of these conversations. It's very nuanced. We had our staff together last week for a early Heritage Day celebration, and reminded them all of a Maya Angelou quote that said, you can't know where you're going if you don't know where you've been. And that's what really got me about your articles, to understand the history of capital. Sure, politics might change here and there, but it's ultimately the same thing. It's about, how do I go and allocate capital properly to get a return off this capital, to go and create something new, and building off that. That's the privileged role that you sit in now in a banking environment.
Yes. No, I think it's vital, right? I think, the world's going through a lot.
Yes.
Right. And there's always questioning on whether we should be deploying capital. I mean, there's been stats around how corporates sit with largest cash balances in history, right? Because people don't have that certainty.
Yes.
It's like, what is going to happen next? If I deploy this, is it going to? And that's where also like private capital comes into the gaps, right? To say, let's take the risk. Let us keep driving the economy. Let us keep pushing. Humanity's got an insatiable need for goods and services and growth and I think there's a very powerful opportunity for private capital to play in that. We live on a continent that's got the youngest population and growing, and Standard Bank, we've got the footprint throughout the continent, and we see it in our markets on a daily basis. So we're certainly excited about where the shape of private capital is going. We're certainly excited about how we're there alongside these allocators and providing them with that insight, giving them a sense of what's behind the veil, around these opportunities. And I think that's the most important thing is linking the opportunity with the capital.
Yes.
Because I think that's where some of this mythology lies, to say like, there's no opportunities. The opportunities are there. It just requires people to kind of just dig in their heels a little bit and do the work. I think
and sometimes you got to translate between people. Someone's got an idea and someone's got the capital, and how do you get them speaking the same language?
I think we were talking before the camera started about, in days where the economy is growing at 4%, 5%, but rates are, like, no one bothers to do the work, right? But in tougher times, that's where you're really going to find the gems. There's great businesses in South Africa, great business on the continent. And you've got those entrepreneurs who are lonely, right? Who are also sitting there and worried around saying, I've got this great business, but do I grow it? Do I exit it? But like, what do I do? And, that's where we try and fill in the gap and saying we can bring those industry experts that have done this multiple times, years and years over, to come and give you that support and that guidance.
Yeah.
And have the bank alongside both of you, to kind of give that reassurance around the continuation of the business. Standard Bank's over 160 years old. And I don't see it going anywhere anytime fast, but it needs to adapt as well. And we need to adapt in terms of how we advise, how we direct the traffic. It's a very, very interesting space.
Yeah, there was someone told me this week, in fact, a bit of the history of Joburg. When Joburg was founded, the year it was founded, and the stock exchange was founded the year after that.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, it's...
So again, it goes back to the starting point. There was, gold was found.
There was a gold rush. There was a dream.
You needed to finance things. You needed to raise the capital. You needed to get the goods off. You needed to beneficiate. You needed, so all of that needed capital, needed entrepreneurs that were going to put money down for a return, obviously. I mean, at the end of the day, this is not for free. I think people are looking to extract returns out of these opportunities, but also we're mindful around not just the economic return. There's also like a social part of it around, like, are we doing good in allocating this capital? And I think that's where kind of you think about more the family offices have brought that flavor into the allocation of capital. Legacy creation is a big thing for them. And also just being seen to do the right thing.
I guess we saw a little taster of that with the Curro, but to take that private to make that a non-profit.
100%. So I don't think that's the last of what we're going to see in terms of those sorts of gestures being made. The interesting thing about private capital sometimes, a bit of FOMO, right? That happens. People see something and they also want to kind of jump on the bandwagon a bit and do, also just do something that other people may be doing, but maybe do it in a different way. So I think there's definitely we're gonna see more in different shapes and different formats of private capital, and I think a growing and burgeoning industry as a whole. Yeah.
Are you identifying any specific themes, any new sectors that you guys are concentrating on that you think could be the next gold rush?
Yeah, I think power has been a big one in South Africa over the last 10, 12, 15 years. We've seen a lot of that, a lot of capital being deployed in that.
I love that as a story. There's private capital mobilizing quickly to solve a country requirement. Why? Because it was in their interest to do so.
100%. I mean, you saw it. I mean, I was fortunate enough to be involved in one of the first REIPP transactions closed. And you saw that. It was another gold rush. almost, right? Like everyone was piling in. There was capital from offshore,
Yes.
private capital in South Africa. There was communities getting empowered, like schools, like there was just a lot of stuff happening around there. And it was around, there's a need, We're seeing that now play out now in the logistics space with the rail, with kind of opening up of the rail network. We think water is going to be a big one next as well.
Yes.
So I think all of these sorts of things that are a need that, on a day-to-day basis we need will drive private capital coming into there. We kind of see where the state has been inefficient in places has created a lot of opportunity for private capital. Think about schooling, you think about healthcare, you think about water, you think about security.
It's a South African trend. We do that
Yeah.
on a regular basis. Where there's an opportunity, the private sector jumps in, makes it right.
Yeah, so I mean, we see a lot in that. I mean, infrastructure is a big one for us. We really believe it's going to require mobilizing massive pools of capital, not only on the continent but globally.
Yeah.
For that, food security has become a big one as well. So kind of from farm to table. So we definitely see there's going to be quite a bit of that as well. And just in more the industrial space, there's a lot of consolidation happening. We've seen in the retail space with the Pick and Pay, Boxer, again, the consumer, insatiable need for goods, So yes, the consumer's under pressure, but we still think there's quite a bit there. Digital infrastructure has been huge as well. Data centers, connectivity, fintech, So we don't see a sector where there's not opportunity. It's just, can we find the right opportunities for our clients to invest in? And then follow those trends. So that's almost the beauty of the role that I've got fortunate enough to have, is we get to see all these trends play out in different sectors, and we get to then bring the capital to these sectors. You've got some of our clients who are very sector specific and sector focused, but in the main they're quite generalist in the way they look at things, and they're always looking for where can they add value, where can they deploy their capital, then ultimately get a return to their shareholders.
Just listening to you, you clearly sound like a South African optimist, and a view shared by most people sitting where you sit there on this Privateers podcast. What are the things that you worry about? It can't all be rosy.
Yeah, so I think, I just worry that we need to all just stay. I worry that not too many people are positive enough, right? So there's always something that's going wrong.
Yes.
And we get quite quickly pulled into that.
Yes.
And kind of woe is me, things are difficult. So I think that's kind of my biggest concern around, like, can we maintain our energy levels? Can we maintain our optimism? Can we maintain our resilience?
Yes.
And have more and more people leaning in, because that's what we need, right? Because in the moment people kind of switch off, that's where you create the apathy. So it's really, South Africans talk about it often, our resilience.
Yeah.
I think if there was a resilience scale or factor out there, there's a book by Angela Duckworth that talks about grit.
Yes.
I think that's epitomizes South Africans, right? Yeah. Like, it's just the grit.
Absolutely.
It's that digging in, just getting on with it. And I hope we keep that, because, the natural risks are there that we all worry about, the macros, the political, those are there, those will always be there. But it's really around us as a people to say, can we, and I think it's this podcast happening at the right time. We're kind of going into Heritage Month, right? Let's all remember our heritage, right? Like,
exactly.
Let's all just remember that we are all in this. We've seen the box, we've seen our Proteas, we've seen, that's just, but final hopefully go to the World Cup next year.
Fingers crossed.
Again, it's all resilience, it's grit. So I worry about that. Like, can we maintain that grit and that mentality? Yeah.
You sound like you've attended a number of our staff functions. That's literally the words we use. Our South African DNA. Often we're the underdogs. We're written off.
Yeah.
But we have this tenacity about us, this resilience and this grit, a can-do attitude, and we need to be, as business leaders, as you in the position that you hold, getting that message out there to the younger generation. So this is our country. We need to fix it. We need to do what we want.
Yeah. There's still a lot of opportunity, Oliver. I think there is. And that was for me when I came into this role, which actually just blew my mind, right? When you you know, the phone calls we get on a daily basis around, there's this opportunity, there's this, can you link me up with this person? Sometimes you almost need to kind of learn how to say no, you know, but, you know, as a team and as a bank, as a business, I think we love it. You know, it's just, we always go. We want to see more, we want to do more. And that's, you know, but it's because the opportunity is there. You know, I don't think people are, you know, running as hard as they are just for fun and they've got nothing else to do. I think, you know, we're doing it because we're responding to a need. You know, so yeah, at least I remain optimistic, very, very bullish.
We have a mutual friend, and there's a story that he likes to relay, that says during these times there's so many opportunities. One of his biggest fears is that when he's an old man, his son is going to ask him, "Dad, what were you doing?"
Yes.
When everyone else was making hay.
Yes. Yeah. So I think it's powerful. I think, you know, and I think it also goes to kind of how we engage with our clients, right? Around focus. You know, there are all these opportunities, but, you know, as a family or as a house or as an investment holding company, you've got a mandate. You've got stakeholders, you know, and enshrined within that is kind of what your mission vision is, right? So double down on that, understand that better, and that will create a lot of clarity, you know, because I think in times of lots of opportunities, it's easy just to kind of have a gunshot approach and try and do everything. And that's where I think people make mistakes, right? So we try and add that kind of focus back to the clients and saying, you know, you don't need to go do everything. You can focus on what's in front of you, what you can add value to, and what's executable, and it'll leave a lot on the table for other people. I think that's also the thing around this, creating sustainability, creating the ability for people to also have hope that. And want to do more because they see there's stuff available for them to do. So yeah, I think for us, with all the opportunity, you still need to, you know, build in some.
You still got to do the basics right. You've got a mandate to fulfill. People have trusted you with their capital.
Exactly. So it's very important to kind of be quite. I was listening to a podcast the other day. A guy saying, "Fall in love with boring." You know, boring's not bad. You know, fall in love with doing the very good things well.
It's a great expression.
You know, just fall in love with that. Just do it well. You know, and just keep chipping away at the boring stuff, and it'll open up a whole bunch of other opportunities.
If you cast your mind back to when you were a youngster at school, and there might be someone that age watching this, maybe not, what advice would you give to youngsters about what they should be doing in their careers and how could they make a difference? How could they get to where you are?
Sure. You're full of good questions today. I think, you know, the world changes so quickly now, you know, compared to, you know, me sitting as a 15-year-old kind of lighty at school, like, what do you want to do? I just want to leave high school. I just want to be an adult. But I think, you know, I'd say be bold, right? Be bold. You can bounce back. I think that, you know, we've seen it as a country. You know, we score on goals all the time.
Be great at that.
But we bounce back, right? So I think don't be too. And I was having a conversation with someone yesterday who was doing some interning in the bank, and I said, don't like silo yourself into, look, I'm studying this and this is what I'm going to do. Yeah. It's like, think about it more holistically. You know, like in our jobs, ultimately we're in sales, right? But it's you're never going to say you're in sales. You're in banking. So be quite dynamic in terms of how you think about what you do, how you do it. And I'd say the biggest thing is don't focus on what you do. Focus on like adding value.
Yes.
Right? Because so like, what am I going to be? Is always like a big question. It's like, well, you know, I've studied this thing, what I'm going to be. I don't know. How do you add value? Right? So think about that would be my piece of advice. It's like, think about value. What does value look like? What does adding value look like? And build up your skills, right? Ultimately, at the end of it, everyone has to sell something. So learn how to sell. Learn how to engage with people, you know.
Who you engage with.
How you engage with, you know, because ultimately, going back to how small this market is, people are going to want to do business and engage with people that they've built rapport with, So I'd say be bold, add value, don't silo yourself, and be flexible. Don't. I mean, like me sitting here. I mean, like I didn't think I'd be sitting here 20 years ago.
Sure.
Yeah. I thought I'd be running a property development business or doing something like that, but I'm here. Like I never. And our chief executive of CIB always says, "Say yes." Say yes. When someone asks you to do something, say yes. Because you don't know where that's going to land you. So that would be my advice in a roundabout way.
Yeah. We both do a lot of work with private equity firms. What are you seeing happening in that sector? What are the trends you're spotting?
Yeah, I think private equity, the guys, it's tough. Raising capital is difficult.
That's not just the South African thing.
Yeah, it's a global thing. I think raising capital is tough. I mean, you're seeing it with the big private equity houses, or BlackRock, and these, they've moved more into like a private credit world versus like your private equity world. So I think the guys it's a tough raising environment, but guys are still going out onto the road and raising capital. Deployment of capital is also become, some houses are deploying quite quickly because they're very clear on their mandates. They know, they've built a pipeline over time through the funds. But guys are focusing on adding value in their portfolio companies. I think that's become very, very important, especially in tough macro environments. It's kind of leaning in a little bit more, spending more time with management, trying to eke out that little extra return. I think so. There's a lot of focus on portfolio management and understanding that you've got the right teams. You're focusing on the right things, because in private equities houses' life, they need to make sure that they add that value and someone to see it for the next round.
Yeah.
Versus just relying on the economy growing and like lifting it. Like it's not a rising tide. I think everyone is having to work really hard. So I think that's where what we see. We see exiting also quite difficult.
Yes, that's a common theme.
Quite difficult. I mean, the listed market kind of under a bit of pressure as an exit path for private equity. So yeah, I think guys are still cautiously optimistic around raising, deploying, adding value, but I'd say certainly working a lot harder at unlocking that value versus just relying on macros. Obviously, we're in a higher for longer interest rate cycle. Hopefully, rates will come down in the near future.
Does the bank have a particular view on that at the moment?
Sure. Now you're really stretching my banker ability around. Look, I think the view is that rates should come down. You look at every bank; they've got their view in terms of when it does come down. But I think generally the view is that rates should come down, which should add a little bit of momentum. But I think even with that, I think people are also still quite circumspect around if it does happen. Like, do we go into a different type of cycle around it? So putting all of these things together becomes quite an optimistic environment where we're hoping for a lot of things to come right at the same time to kind of drive value.
The mood in the city over the last couple of months, maybe it's just springtime, but certainly
it helps.
It does help, but the mood in Johannesburg certainly has lifted. We can see business activity. Maybe the doom and gloom of winter is behind us.
Yes.
Does the bank share that view?
Yeah, look, we're busy. I think we are also, with the December year end, I think people are very focused. Depending on when this will air, I was talking to my team, and I think we're talking about the other days, like there's 60 days left of the year working.
Wow.
Right? So when you distill it to that, you start becoming laser focused around what's urgent, what's important, and what needs to get done. So there's definitely energy, and there's definitely people jumping in and wanting to get things done and dealt. So yeah, I think changing season always kind of helps. But yeah, I think people are Yeah, good energy. There's a good energy out there, and we're seeing that. You know, some of the mandates that we're winning, some of the businesses that we're looking to participate in, and you know, some of the inbound queries that we're getting. It's amazing. I mean, it's across all sectors.
Yeah.
I don't think there's only one sector that's sitting and saying I'm the unloved child in the corner here. I think there's quite a bit of activity throughout. Yeah.
So the days of writing of Johannesburg probably written off a bit too early.
Look, I mean, people are coming back.
Definitely.
You know, people are coming back. The Cape is it's expensive. Look, I'm long Joburg, right? Like, I mean, I've grown up here, and you know, the energy, the vibe, the intensity, just the innovative, the entrepreneurial nature, the hustling, the bustle. You know, like everyone is just always trying to do something. You know, so I think Joburg. I mean, yes, as a city, we need to get a lot of things right. You know, fix the potholes, do this. You know, the water leaks and this and that. But you drive around and you see, like, you know, new tars being laid. And,
it is.
You know, so all of that stuff is there. And then we need to talk more about, it goes back to that point around, like, let's tell those stories of what we're seeing, you know, versus just continuously seeing the negative side of it.
Look, your energy is infectious. It's obvious. I mean, anyone who spends 5 minutes with you is going to end up being a Joburg optimist. But it is important to get those messages out there. And part of the reason why we have this Privateers podcast, to go and share the message out there. This is what's happening. I don't think there has been a person that sat in that seat that hasn't had something positive to say about where we're going, where we're trending. I think everyone's a realist as well to say we have our challenges and we're not downplaying those. But we can make a difference.
Correct. No, I think you're spot on. I think we can't always go around and be like, you know, you do need to kind of be measured in your optimism. But, you know, you got to lift people up, you know, with you and make sure that you're all kind of going in the same direction. Because sometimes you feel like you're running against a brick wall.
Yeah.
And that's the nature of private capital sometimes, right? Like, guys have to be doing things that are slightly unconventional.
Yeah.
You know, thinking about structure slightly differently, thinking about opportunities differently. But that's where the fun is in a lot of what we do. You know, meeting people that have been doing this thing for a long time, and learning from their wisdom, but also new guys that are seeing great opportunity.
Yeah.
You know, I think you know, those days of kind of going a very linear path of like, you know, I'm going to go do that and then do that, are almost like gone, right? Like with the gig economy, with people starting businesses all over, seeing gaps everywhere. Yeah. You know, I've got a good friend of mine who is a serial entrepreneur, and, you know, he started selling snap watches and doing this and doing that, and he's built an amazing software development business. But like, you know, there's those sorts of people that we need in the country. You know, he employs, I don't know, 300-400 young people. He's got
amazing.
You know, but you can just see it's like it's an infectious energy. You know? So I think surrounding yourself around people like that also helps.
Definitely.
You know, because you see what they're doing on the ground, and you want to see how you can help grow that, how you can help mobilize that.
It's so obvious to see that you're passionate about what you're doing, that you're making a difference. I thank you very much for being on our podcast, Privateers podcast. There are going to be a lot of people who are going to enjoy watching this, just getting the inspiration from you. Please write another article. I really enjoyed it. If anyone who hasn't read it, they need to go and read your article. It was a great analysis of where we've come from and where we're going to, and I think you were on point with it.
Yeah, thanks, Oliver. I think maybe to close out, I think you got to know where you come from to know where you're going, right? Like my mom always says to me, it's like, you know, you all got roots. You know, you come from somewhere. Yeah. You know, you just didn't fall out the sky. Yeah. So it's good to kind of have that rooted basis of like, you know, where do we come from? What are the challenges been? Where were the opportunities? Let's not make the same mistakes. You know, let's be forward looking. Let's be visionary. You know, let's not be too hard on ourselves. You know, so yeah, I really appreciate the time. It's always good to talk about these things, and also test yourself. You know, like, do you still believe in what you wrote? You know, and I fundamentally believe in it. And yeah, I think we're in for a really good ride. Challenging, but fun. You know, and we're just gonna continuously remain gritty and optimistic.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Thank you very
Thanks,
much.
Oliver. Appreciate it.
Good stuff.
Yeah. Cheers.